Greetings, epic adventurers. In this section of the course, we're going to shift gears a little bit and we're going to move from classic battles with monsters, dragon slaying, quests and that sort of adventure to what I refer to as the trope of holy war. We have a whole range of epics, especially what we refer to as the national epics of Spain, of France, of Russia, of Byzantium. And these heroes tend to, at least ostensibly, be in battle against evil or against Satan. As we'll see, it's not nearly that simple, and very often this trope of holy war is used to clothe these heroes in Christian trappings while still allowing them to battle against monsters in sort of the classic epic style. But we're going to begin with a very overtly Christian story, the Dream of the Rood, the short poem I gave you to read from the Old English period. And there is, in fact, a PDF of this available to you through Moodle if you've lost the one I gave you. In any case, I'm going to ask you to read this poem. And I have a slideshow presentation that I'll probably break up into a number of parts. And in each of those parts, I'll do some voiceover commentary. So the same way I would in class if we were viewing the slideshow. But in any case, what's interesting about this to me is coming out of the context where, for example, we read Beowulf, right? And we talked about the Christian and pagan elements and how they were in conflict and sometimes how they're in confluence, but very often how they appear to be different sorts of things. And here we're going to have a poem about the cross from the perspective of the cross, not from the perspective of Christ. And it's going to be clothed in the trappings of this kind of epic hero's battle. And it's really very interesting because the heroism of Christ. Christ is not the Jesus you might know from the gospel accounts who would like this cup, if it may, to pass him by. It's in fact a Germanic warrior hero, very much out of the mold of a Beowulf. And this speaks to kind of societal expectations. You know, the people of England during that period after the conversion still had this heroic ethos as part of their culture, and so they wanted really to worship a god who embodied not just this a promise of salvation, but also this epic heroic mode. So we're going to look at this poem, The Dream of the Rood. We're going to look at a physical object, actually two physical objects, two crosses, because there were many of these standing stone and standing wood crosses where people began to gather to worship in what we're going to call the cult of the cross, and I'll explain that when we get to it. But what's really interesting about this is we have a particularly beautiful artifact from Dumfries in the southwest of Scotland, where we have this giant cross, obviously symbolizing Christianity, that has biblical scenes on some of the faces, but also in runes, this Germanic carving along some of the other faces has a portion of this poem that you're reading, the Dream of the Rood. So it's a really interesting object. It combines Christian and pagan in these really interesting ways. And so this is a good launching pad for us to shift our discussion from kind of the classic pagan epics of Northwestern Europe and begin to talk about some of the great Christian era epics that we're going to discuss in this course. So we're going to look at the Dream of the Rood. We're going to look at this object, the Rothwell Cross, which is in Dumfries in Scotland. And we're also going to look at this smaller object, this reliquary cross known as the Brussels cross, because, hey, it's in Brussels. That has part of the kind of almost a summary of the poem, kind of the spark notes of the Dream of the Rood inscribed on it. So at this point, we're going to shift gears a little bit and move from these classic, dragon slaying heroes and the pagan heroes of epic, and move into Christian epics, which give us sort of a context of holy war. So that's what we're going to do now.